Okay, I want to call to order this meeting. Today is September 24th, 12:09. We're gonna start with the meeting, and if someone would like to do the Pledge of Alliance.
Yes. Sure. Please stand. Face north.
Face north, yes.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If anybody, we'll all need to sign. If you haven't, I think we do have quorum. It's 7 of us at least, so we can continue with the meeting. And we're gonna open to public comments. So anyone would like to
Yes,
start?
I'd like to have some public comments. There's been a little bit of confusion going on. I guess confusion is, for lack of better terms, but in the last couple of weeks, I've been looking into what we've been using as a base for this organization, and there's a question of bylaws and stuff like that. So what I have here is a couple of packets for you guys, and everybody should have a packet that says Certificate of Formation, and it has a stamp on the upper right-hand corner that says July 8th, 2019. Does everybody have that?
Can I get an extra copy of one of those?
Sure.
Thank you.
Oh, no. I've done
No,
that like
just
6 times.
no worries, just.
Very good.
Thank you.
But I don't have the one that has
Here you
like
go.
the stamp.
Hey, somebody need one?
Oh, thank you. This
Oh,
is
give
it?
me one. Thank you.
Okay, what did I do with the other ones? Are these the ones? Those are the buttons. Okay. All right, so for us to, the reason why I'm bringing this up is I think we all need to be on the same page and be able to readily identify these documents. So this is the Certificate of Formation. This is the paperwork that was sent to the state to form this group. Now, in a email from Christian, who's the city attorney, to us, he had said that at our first meeting, the board should address a few organizational matters. Adoption of the bylaws. So right now, we don't have any bylaws that have been adopted. We do have bylaws that are written. You want to hand those out?
Yeah.
But
Everybody have with the bylaws on top?
okay, but those have not been adopted. And
Formally.
Formally, correct. And we can't do that today because it's not on the agenda. So one of the first things we have to do at the next meeting is adopt the bylaws. And I think that's a critical step in organization of this committee. Also, he said, adoption of bylaws, election of corporation officers, which we did the last meeting. Initial schedule for regular board meetings, we've done that. Setting locations where meetings will be posted, we've done that. And making sure that everybody has taken the Texas organizational meetings training, which hopefully everybody
The
has.
ethics
Yeah,
course.
I guess if we have, you want us to email our.
Yes, if you can send me the
certificates,
certificates, I will make sure that everybody's on board with that.
We had 90 days, there's
Can
probably
you send
I'll
it
send you a
over,
link.
the link so I can do that?
30, there's probably 30 days left.
Okay. In the minutes, which from the last meeting, which I'll pass out in a little bit, it has all the links to that, so you can look at them. Okay, so I just kind of wanted to go over that because I guess there's been some speculation. So should we have adopted the bylaws before electing officers, or was electing officers before adopting the bylaws okay? So perhaps we could discuss that.
There, it's just comments.
Yes, it would be just comments.
So is everybody kind of clear? I know you weren't here for the last meeting, but the issue is that under the Certificate of Formation, there are officers that were designated. There was a communication with Christian, the attorney, that we had to elect officers in the first meeting. But which we did, but it seems a little contradictory, and we need to clarify all of that and then just kind of take the correct steps to make sure that we go down the correct path. That's basically what Guillermo was trying to say. So I guess for the purposes of this meeting, because we cannot, in good faith, I think, proceed with any action on anything, because we're not sure who we're not sure what officials are truly in charge. So we can't officially take action on anything, but we could probably proceed with discussing the items that are on the agenda. And so the timeline for maybe the next couple of weeks would look something like this. We would discuss the items on the agenda, cannot take any action, clarify with Christian exactly what we need to do as far as officers go, and then hold another quick meeting to execute upon his advice what we need to do as officers, adopting the bylaws, and then at that point we can do motions and actions on everything that was discussed today. We just cannot take any.
Okay. So the idea would be that we would have a meeting sooner than the next scheduled one? Like try to schedule
Correct.
something
I would
in the
suggest
next
that.
week or two?
Yeah, we'd have to do that, but it would, in the interest of time, we'll discuss today, cannot take action, and then during the next meeting, officially go through everything.
Can
Take action.
Can I comment? From my experience with the Secretary of State, because we filed that formation, those articles of formation, and it had already officers on there. From my experience, when we have a change of officers, especially like president and vice president, we do submit the change to the Secretary of State, but that doesn't govern us. So whatever the organization is, it's just to update
It's
them.
just to update.
And it's just to start the organization, and that's kind of what the steps were. I do think, though, that we shouldn't take any more action until we have governing bylaws set in stone. And then because those governing bylaws are going to tell us our rules and regulations of what we can do and how we can move forward with voting and who can be what and all that stuff. But that's just my experience with the Secretary of State. I don't think that it doesn't rule over us. It's a formality for the state. And when we make our decisions here, then we would send in our final decision over to the Secretary of State.
Very good.
Does anybody have any more comments regarding
Public thing.
this?
Regarding the officers and what we're going
Yes.
to be doing in terms of taking action. Are we okay with that?
I mean, the only thing that bothered me is that it said an actual date in the formation documents. And so whoever wrote that obviously intended for that person to hold the chair position until September 30th of 2020. I wish there wouldn't have been a date there, and we could just,
Then it would have been easy.
yeah.
Right.
I think it's on, because our bylaws that are a draft bylaws, it says that the term for a president is 1 year. So I think those terms also conflict with whatever we submitted to the Secretary of State. I don't know who wrote that or put that together, but maybe talking to them and seeing where they got that.
It was a collaboration, I think, between a couple of parties. Well, between
Yeah.
Christian and whoever else, I think. But
So we'll meet with him too. We're gonna set a
yeah,
meeting.
we have to. He absolutely needs to be consulted because
Yeah.
all the stuff has to be changed and maybe resubmitted just for formality
Yeah,
reasons
formality.
or whatever.
Okay. So we can approve any of this. So we can approve the minutes from
No.
August
I don't think so.
27.
But I can pass them out.
Right, we
and
can,
you guys can review them.
and we can
Review.
review and comment
We
too.
got a copy of the agenda. Oh,
Oh, here's the agenda.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. There you go. Just take one, pass them down. Here's some minutes in there.
Thank you, ma'am. Did you get a copy from the minutes?
Oh,
So I pieced together the minutes as best as I could. I do want to mention that the fact that public access is here recording everything was a tremendous help. And at the very back, it has a YouTube link that you guys can see everything that's recorded here.
I do have a question. I went on the city website today to get the agenda, and I was looking for the minutes to review them. Do we submit the minutes to the city, or because we didn't even have like a link for us specifically? You know what I mean?
I think that's something that we need to discuss just for procedure. Would it be something that we should, like we had the last meeting, I wrote the minutes. Today we would approve them, and then I would submit for them to be posted?
Oh, I don't know.
Or would they be posted without approval?
I don't know. That, yeah.
So that's something for us to decide at a later.
Yeah. But to think about, we can ask the legal how that would work.
Okay, so we need to find out if there,
What's the procedure
what
for
is the
minutes?
procedure for minutes? Okay.
And we're also going to ask legal for their interpretation of governing board. So I guess look at the minutes. If you guys have any changes, we can talk about it at the next meeting, whenever that will be.
Okay.
Also, in looking at the minutes, I did have some homework, which was to talk to finance about the setting up of the account and stuff like that. So I did send an email to finance asking them for their assistance, and basically I wrote, the Center for Urban Agriculture and Sustainability is a public non-for-profit government corporation created and operated in accordance with Chapter 431 of the Transportation Code to promote the common good and general welfare of the city. As such, LCUAS is in receipt of $200,000 from the City of Laredo for operations. What guidelines would you suggest that we follow in the administration of those monies? Bank recommendations. Thank you in advance for any guidance you can provide. Mr. Casillo, the Assistant Finance Director, responded with, I think you need to consult with a certified public accountant to set up the accounting and reporting for the nonprofit corporation. And the funding of $200,000 that is available in the Keep Laredo Beautiful Fund will expire at the end of the fiscal year. He called me and he said basically we need to invoice the city in order for them to send us a check on that. So that's something that I guess
Do
the
we
treasurer
know
would
if
have
this
to
is
do.
on a reimbursement base?
No.
Or there?
No,
I don't
no,
think it
I
is.
think invoice for 200,000.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
And then they'll give
They'll
us
give-
a
okay.
check. I think that's what I understand.
Yes, that's true.
Okay, good.
So that's probably something that the treasurer would have to come up with.
I can help you with that, Bobby.
You're very familiar with this-
invoice
invoicing the
pretty
city.
often.
Okay. Where's the agenda?
Okay.
So,
So if anybody has comments on the
on the minutes.
minutes, please let us know right now. If not, we're gonna move on to the next item, which is a discussion with possible action on adopting Robert Rules of Order.
Sure, I think everybody's probably in favor of that, except
No
we
action.
need governing bylaws,
Right,
so.
right.
Just do like a pseudo action for next time.
Is it in the bylaws?
What,
To
adopting the,
follow Robert's Rules of Order?
Yeah, it might be, if it's not in there, just
Yeah,
to add
put
a
it in there.
section to the committee shall follow Robert's Rules of Order, and then when we
adopt the bylaws,
adopt
it's
this,
done.
then we.
Okay, good idea.
I know. And then the next item is a discussion with possible action for the posting of openings, but not limited to executive director, volunteer coordinator, etc. So we have a piece of paper on at least the descriptions for essential functions of executive director, I'm assuming.
Yes.
We don't have one for coordinator or volunteer coordinator?
No. So
Okay.
I put together because if anything, we'd start with an executive director and then just kind of go from there. I guess, I'm not
Could I have a
sure.
copy of that?
Here you go.
The salary right there, it's a big range, but I haven't, it's only a big range because it was a guess. I'm not quite sure. I haven't contacted anybody to figure out. I mean, I've seen figures for larger cities, they're in excess of 100,000, they have programs that have been around for 20 plus years. So I just put that in there to put a number in there. But for the work schedule, I put to be determined, but their work schedule needs to be flexible, and realistically, I think it's somewhere between 40 to 60 hours per week. And the reason it needs to be flexible is if there are events, the director would be in charge of events, so an event could be on a Sunday, it could be on a Saturday, they need to be flexible with their days. And obviously, during weeks where there are events, it's going to be more time. So that's why I kind of thought it'd be fair to put 40 to 60 hour work week is going to be part of the deal there.
I don't think we can do any kind of 60-hour week in terms of, I don't think it's legal. I think the work week is 40 hours. And we cannot say you're gonna work 60 hours, not in the announcement. Like we know, we work 60 hours, right? But I don't think in the announcement can be
You can
said
Oh, okay.
it's more than 40 hours per week.
Okay.
And the other thing, I'm sorry to interrupt, the other thing, I do agree it needs to be flexible, and maybe it needs to be Tuesday through Saturday, and they can have Sunday and Monday off. I mean, just an idea maybe.
Yeah, that's something I've considered before too, just in working like the grounds, because it's been a lot of the activities on Saturday. So whenever I've considered like a schedule, that it would be more of like a Tuesday through Saturday rather than Monday through Friday.
So then, the only issue with that is if we need to schedule an event for a Sunday, then
That's overtime, maybe.
I see where you're going, but I don't think we have to necessarily put, the days that they will work. Since it is an executive director position, they would work 40 hours a week.
whatever day. Well, and
Whatever
so
day.
that's why I put in flexible, because
Yeah, that's a good idea.
you don't know if you would have to work a Sunday or not.
Right, and then.
I would assume, because if there is an event on a Sunday, then
I mean, I guess as long as the board is okay with something like if there's a weekend event, then that a Monday would be taken off or whatever, that they would.
yeah, I would assume it'd still be a 5-day work week, but it just has to.
Just depending on
It
whatever's
just depends
going
on the event, what's going on. It could fall on a holiday, maybe that's a Sunday and there's some event. Like I don't know. I'm just foreseeing, because some things, like in the restaurant industry, we don't know if something falls on a Sunday and you're celebrating something and that's the day, So I don't know. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. And then,
I will be right then.
so, I mean, I think we just can say flexible, right? Or some Saturdays, Sundays or Saturdays required, like a note on the description. And then some of the essential functions, listed, of course. So provide strategic leadership for all activities and programs under the LCUAS portfolio. Develop center's reputation for botanical expertise and leadership in key areas of native plant conservation and horticulture, ecosystems-based research and sustainability in landscape. With the center's board of directors, take key stakeholders. I don't want to read these because you can read it by yourself.
Okay.
I mean,
You want me
I
to
don't
read it
know.
'cause of your voice?
Yes.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
With the center's board of directors, key stakeholders and staff members set fundraising goals and strategies, participating significantly in these efforts, represent the center to external audiences, including public agencies, relevant conservation and industry groups, professional practitioners, foundations, and the general public. Basically, all that means is just be out there in the public, talking to people, pushing the idea, pushing the mission. Serve as principal liaison and work closely with the City of Laredo and any of its pertaining departments, school districts, universities, and any public and private groups to further the vision and mission of LCUAS. That kind of ties in with function number 2. In collaboration with the center's treasurer, develop and manage the annual budget and ensure that all state and local procedures and laws are followed. Serve as unit head for all financial and human resource transactions, delegating allowable authorities as appropriate. Direct overall operations such that strategic priorities are realized. So, obviously that would mean, the executive director would prepare a report, expenses or the executive director would collaborate with the treasurer, say, okay, these are our expenses, this is basically working with the budget. Like, this is where our money's going. This is where we see it going, in the future, and current expenses, whatever. That'd be part of their job.
Correct.
As well, right? Oversee management and further development of the center's facilities, i.e. gardens, maintaining proper infrastructure to preserve the integrity of the sites and to ensure a safe environment for staff members and visitors. So they would have to go around to city community gardens, and overlook them and check them out, see their condition, report on their conditions, and suggest anything that needs to be done to keep them going.
I think we need to add something about grant writing. I don't know if you.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I was going to inquire as to whether that is looked at as the primary, responsibility of executive director, or does that also is there a consideration for contracting a grant writer? I don't know if that's an option or.
I think there could be a consideration of contracting a grant writer, but I think the executive director should be overseeing and should be able to write something.
Yeah,
It is up on.
Collaborate with grants with other entities. So I think.
Up on the top, above essential functions, it is in there where it says,
Right.
Including organizational leadership and culture development, staff administration, finance, board and organizational management, program development, fundraising, grant research and execution, stakeholder development, and marketing communications. But yeah, it could be put in here somewhere
As
too.
an essential function, yeah,
Yeah.
that would be good. Because there's, and just sorry to interject, because this is kind of, the position that I play for Main Street, and it's, I think that the board also has to be clear in, there's 2 things. One, the executive director, at the end of the day, that's gonna fall on them. The grants and any fundraising and any of that, it comes through their door. We're the ones that have to look for it. There's small grants that don't really take, like local foundation grants that you're not gonna need somebody to write it for you. You can easily write that. But then there is those big, federal grants, if we're gonna be in search of those, that would require some more expertise on how to write those, because those can get difficult, especially with the execution of that. The federal and state government is very meticulous on how you spend the money and where you spend it and all that good stuff. But as board members, we also have to keep in mind that the tools that we also bring to the table, And assisting in fundraising and grant writing and all of that is a huge, I think, responsibility for board members to also provide that those efforts to the executive director. So just so we can all keep that in mind, I think that's an essential function of a board of director. So if it's not in the bylaws, I think that
That
should be something that should
and like
be.
you said, not only the grants, but just in general, like fundraising.
Fundraising,
go out
everything,
and socialize.
Yeah.
To
ask-
participate?
To
with everything?
participate
Yeah.
in that. In some form, I mean, we have board members that bring, hey, I got this guy that wants to sponsor the event. Okay, great, you know. Or, hey, I know this foundation and they want to give you $20,000 and they, like, everybody has their different connections, right? But I think it's imperative that the board is also assisting with the growth, the financial growth of the organization as well.
In the back page under marginal incidental functions, I just put there additional hours would be necessary, but that just goes back to that whole 40 to 60 hours, which obviously will take that out.
Well,
And
sorry to interject here,
Yeah.
but I pulled up the City of Laredo positions and I was looking at the physical requirements of work environment. It's got a pretty good little section here. Capable of working closely with others or alone, working long or irregular working hours, working shift work.
irregular? Okay. That-
Regular. Working shift work and or weekends and traveling by car 30% of the time. So that might be something to,
Follow their language somewhat? Okay. So I under required qualifications, right now I just put and of course it's just a draft, that's why everybody please,
This would be like a volunteer
Check.
coordinator or something like that, an additional position, right?
which one?
This one, the marginal incidental.
No, that's
No,
marginal
it's
to
all-
the
it's all the
executive
same one.
director.
Oh.
It's just basically stating like, going back and just kind of putting, part of the job is additional, like not just standard 40 hours, like the position requires a little bit of other work, sometimes more than others. So I didn't put anything under required qualifications right now, I just put under preferred because being in Laredo, I'm not sure, what kind of qualifications people would have, what's realistic. I don't know what is realistic. So for right now, I just put everything under preferred qualifications. Degree in a field related to the mission of LCUAS. Have work experience based on research scholarship and or creative practice in natural resources conservation, landscape architecture planning, ecology, environmental sciences, horticulture, botany, or related fields. Demonstrated experience at an executive level, leadership, personnel management, and expertise in communicating in culturally diverse environments. Demonstrated experience securing financial support for research, capital projects, and programs, and highly advanced interpersonal skills and writing skills. Again, take this, I'll email this out to everybody, and since we're gonna have a little bit of time to take any action on this or whatever, maybe we can circulate a copy and then just hammer it out in the next couple of weeks. Vice Chair, or
next on the agenda is discussion with possible action regarding board insurance, details to be reviewed.
So I spoke to TML, the risk pool, and so I'm waiting to see what they say, but I think this would fall under them, and we'll see if.
TML is
Texas Municipal League. And so they are basically cover the insurance for all the cities in Texas as well as other government entities, so.
So they're gonna.
Or a government entity,
I guess,
so, yeah.
quasi. So they're gonna just double check
Yeah,
that.
and I'll see if, they're pretty good at sending people down to go over things, so I'll see if at a future board meeting, I can get somebody to come and present.
Okay. And is this is insurance for?
This would be liability, it would be board, I looked into the board, they do say that they will offer board insurance. I was thinking maybe we would be exempted from that, but it looks like we're not. But yeah, they
That good,
cover
okay.
everything.
Okay, cool. I did ask our insurance guy, just out of curiosity, if they did board insurance, and he said, no, we're not gonna touch you, so I said, okay. So I'm glad.
Well, IBC, Falcon, and can do. So if we, for whatever reason, can't get it through here,
Just have a backup
there
option.
is other options for them.
Okay.
Next is discussion and updates regarding bank account release of funding.
We got the release of funding, the bank account, everything is submitted, pending, Dr. Uribe needs to send in a couple of things, but that should be ready within 24 hours.
Like it'll be up and running? Like we'll have a bank account?
As soon as we get money in it.
Oh, yeah, the account will be there and then.
It's just an account until, yeah.
Right,
The
then we need to do
the
the
fiscal
invoice.
year ends September 30th, so that's Monday. So we need to invoice the city like tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So we don't miss that.
Okay.
That's a lot of money to miss.
Yeah.
Oh,
You know what?
yes.
Okay, I'm just trying to think signatories on that? The
Right, I had just a quick little comment. Perhaps we could discuss or just think about, since it is a rather large amount of money and the responsibility involved, other than payroll, what I've seen in other organizations, other than payroll, if a check is to be written for over a specific dollar amount, it would require 2 signatures. Perhaps something we'd want to do here?
Main
Yes,
Street has a purchasing policy. Anything over $500 has to be 2 signatures on,
Okay.
and anything under that only requires 1.
Okay.
But that's
Kinda
500. I
same
mean,
deal.
you can
Yeah.
set whatever limit you feel.
Well, maybe you could share that policy
Yeah.
with us.
I'll email it to everybody.
Next is lease agreement for Canseco property status of Canseco House renovations, Canseco Carriage House running as an office for LCUAS.
Yeah, I had just kind of a passing conversation with Merck, because that's in his district. And he was asking just like, hey, well, how's the house coming? What do you all need? And I just mentioned, well, I mean, I think there's still a while for the house to be completed, but there has always been talk about at least the little carriage house being something we could use. But again, that's gonna go back to a lease agreement. I think they just put windows on that carriage house. We have a big walk-in fridge that I mentioned that we have in storage that's ready to go in that carriage house too. That's gonna be super helpful for, once we decide on if we do like a CSA or just in general storage of stuff that gets harvested. And so, I don't know how we would initiate that conversation
Or with who?
or with who.
I mean, do we need a lease?
What is the
garden.
agreement now? Because
Yeah.
how are we using the property? It's a city property, so is it it was just kind of like a verbal agreement?
I
or-
think so. I mean,
Or was it
it
through
initiated
council?
because Councilman Perez, Alex Perez, that was one of his projects with his discretionary funds.
Mhm.
So we built out the garden, but I don't know. I don't think there's like a formal
Mhm.
agreement there, and we need to do that.
Yeah.
I
Because that's
don't-
gonna come into like when we have events, if something were to happen on the grounds, whose liability would it fall on?
And
as
who-
far
The
as-
city.
Who's that a conversation with? Who would that be
Who
a
is that
conversation with?
person? Yeah.
I don't. Do we need to approach Merck to take that?
Yeah, maybe
to,
the
to
city
initiate
council.
that. Does that sound?
Maybe as one of his items.
Yeah, maybe. Or just at least, maybe he can get some more information on kind of where.
I know because I've had a meeting with him on a separate. There's the South Laredo Nature Center that's part of RISC that they want to do at this property, and so we had a meeting where it was Merck and Tricia and the organization to talk about to review their lease agreement for it. So it might be something similar.
Yeah, because also under lease, I guess would be utilities, stuff like that, I mean.
Right,
I don't know-
right.
I don't know.
Currently, and I
I don't
don't
know how
know
that
if
works
it's
out.
designated as park
So it's
property.
designation, we need to clarify?
I don't know, yeah, I mean, Parks is paying the water bill on it right now. And obviously my division has been managing the garden and doing everything there.
So that brings about the question, you know, would the 200,000 include the utilities and maintenance of that property?
Or if the city will sponsor that, as they have been, at least for another 5 years. No, I don't know. I mean, I'm just throwing out different options, right, that we can maybe approach them with.
So I have a question. If the city designates the money, because it's 200,000, I know 75 was for trees or something, right? Is that?
So specifically, it was for the propagation of native trees, right? Or something along those lines.
It was a confusing motion, but yeah.
Okay. So
I
then-
think we could go, I think that's something we could work on to define clearly and make
So-
like a clear objective.
Okay, so in the balance, the city or councilman said that it was for the hiring of an executive director and assistant, and I want to say that was it. If they say that, is that the only thing that money can be used for, or is it, or can you basically use the money for
Other things.
applicable things, like in?
I would think that, you know, you have to put those employees somewhere. You obviously have to worry about insurance and utilities and other things, so I think that would be related to those employees,
Okay.
which
So
means that our salaries are.
Right, right. But you can use that money, even though they said, I mean, in theory, if they said executive director and assistant, we could use the money for other things.
And maybe
like-
just to be on the safe side, once we get everything going, it probably wouldn't hurt to submit something as a amendment to that money for approval for everything else we need to do.
Okay.
And I have a
Just to
And
keep
then if it's
just to
approved,
keep everything.
then great.
Yeah, I
Just to
have a
keep-
feeling
okay.
there is, I mean, we need to revisit what was written for that, but I have a feeling there was something about like the positions and things related to
Okay.
to the operations of, because one of the things we need, and I mean, just what I've been thinking is we need to kind of create some kind of logo or something, or some kind of printed material, especially if we're, as a board, are gonna go out and try to, do some fundraising and stuff, be able to.
And then also keep in mind that originally this money was set aside, this was going to be a city division. That was the original thought of council. Obviously, that's changed, so, but I think we can revisit that.
Now, is there the possibility of, I know we're at the point where it's, the employees are to be hired by the organization, not city employees. But is there still the possibility for it to be city employees but with those monies?
No,
For the sake of like benefits and stuff like that?
that's not my understanding of this. Again,
Is that like an
if
agreement
it was a
somewhere?
division, yes.
Yeah.
But now we're talking about, like, if the city was using county employees, they're two different entities. Unless there's an MOU or an agreement where the city's gonna use county employees and the county's gonna pay for their benefits and we'll share their salaries.
Okay.
I mean, that may be possible, but it's.
Not as an
completely separate.
LGC?
Right.
Money was for city division.
Okay, I don't understand it. Like, at all. Because Tommy, you is just like, you have money for a position, yes, no question, right? So how, so I'm thinking about Keep Laredo Beautiful.
Right.
I remember that position was paid by the city.
Yes, and that was originally how it was going, this was gonna be set up.
Right.
It would be a nonprofit with a board, but a city employee, or it's 2 city employees. It morphed into this local government corporation, in which case, we're completely separate now. And that was odd. Usually a local government corporation, a good example is North Texas Air Quality Local Government Corporation. It was set up because you have multi-jurisdictions. You have obviously an air shed that doesn't know boundaries. And in order to handle air pollution up there, they created this separate government entity that would address air quality issues, because you have, 20, 30 cities in there. And so it makes sense. But that's the only background I have of a local government corporation.
Right.
Here we're all within the city, but yeah, we are essentially a separate entity at this point.
Okay. I understand now. Okay. I mean, that's going to be very challenging. Thinking about this 1 year of funding only, right?
To set the record straight, I said I think it should be like Keep Laredo Beautiful.
Right.
That was my recommendation.
Right.
But I think the reason, if I remember correctly, that it was steered towards an LGC was so that there could continue to be collaboration from city departments. In particular,
We do
because-
that with when we do that with Keep Laredo Beautiful.
Well,
For
but with
public.
Keep Laredo Beautiful, they communicated to us that if we went just the 501c3 route, that it's like, here you go and you can't collaborate anymore.
No, that was just,
Right, it was
just the
either-
opposite, yeah.
It was either, it was kind of like you want our help, like if we wanted to try to collaborate with the city, this was the way to do it, right? Like,
Yes.
Yeah, if we
public,
wanted to keep
private.
collaborating, we would be an LGC. If we wanted to just kind of be on our own, it would be a 501c3. That's what was my understanding throughout this process.
And that was my comment with that was, if you make this a separate entity, then you're not going to be able to rely on city staff to work these events.
It's like us, we have to ask the city's
But
permission
it's interesting to hear that now, because that's something that I've been really attentive to because of the role that my division has played with LCUAS.
But the idea
And
is.
so the idea was, how do we formalize that relationship of this division being able to.
So the founders were bothered by the fact that this would have been an advisory board that would ultimately answer to council. I don't think that would have been an issue. I don't think that's a bad thing, but they didn't want it that way, and it is what it is. But yeah, that was my exact point. If you create a separate entity, then when it comes to, hey, we're gonna have this event, John, can you send your folks over?
Absolutely not.
No, I'm beholden to my employer, which is the City of Laredo, and I need to make sure that salaries and equipment and all of that stuff is being used for its intended purpose, which is serving the citizens of Laredo, because they work for the City of Laredo. They don't work for Lucas.
So the opposite has happened
Yes.
from what we intended.
Oh my goodness.
What are you pointing at?
His face is like.
No, really. I mean, that's serious. That's serious, because then now, technically my division needs to.
Now,
Lay
that's
off.
that's not to say, again, we can't collaborate, but it's going to be an extra step to where we're going to have MOUs and those type of things. It can be done, but yeah, no, by going
because-
this route, it made it much more complex, in my opinion.
Well, I think we need to explore that, and is it through an MOU that the possibility of city employee could be
I
Could
think
be
that's the
worked
route we're
through.
going to have to go.
What is an MOU?
a memorandum of understanding?
It's
It's just extra
basically
documentation.
saying, it's documentation saying
That there's an
this is an
agreement.
agreement and this is.
Right.
Because that's been my whole thing, and it's been this complicated situation since I started with the city. Because I started in large part related to this project.
Right.
That was a big component of what I was doing. And so I've been trying to get clarity because the project has been running on my free time on weekends. So I've been trying with my department to be like, hey, what is it like? Is this part of my responsibility or not? Because the way I'm being managed, I don't have any time or priority to give to this project, so I'm having to do it on my free time.
Right.
And so the whole LGC, I was under the impression that, and that's how, I mean, we've had many meetings and I always came out of that feeling like that the LGC was going to formalize the division's involvement
No.
in
Right.
this, and it's actually doing the opposite.
And I remember that meeting where legal was here, that they said, if we want people like you on the board, people from the city on the board, we needed to have a separate entity. I think that was the conversation. Like.
And that you're correct. That did come up.
Yeah. Were you there
yes,
at that meeting?
If it had been a division of the city and set up kind of like Keep Laredo Beautiful, then the city employees would not be on the board. I guess we could be ex officio. Or,
Right.
Because for the record too, they've always said, no, don't even talk about Keep Laredo Beautiful. We're not going to do that.
Mhm.
Like they were like, that's like I'm respectfully saying, I'm saying that's what's always come up. Like don't refer to that as an example because that's
not a good
coming
example.
from Christian. It was just kind of like,
Well,
that's
I
not
know.
really,
Yeah, I know Christian didn't particularly like that setup either, but.
Didn't seem like much of
Yeah.
anything.
So I don't know, that's going to be, I guess that's also something we need to talk to Christian about when we have our legal meeting with him.
I don't know.
Bring up
I agree that it's very important to talk to him about that, but I think we need to set a priority of things that we do need to talk to him about first. And of course, the first things will be
The bylaws.
the bylaws, the execution, or the interpretation of governing board positions, and then eventually we can get to that because it seems like.
I agree. I mean, we just need to expedite it because we have 1 year to show and operate to our capacity of what we can do and hopefully try to get more funding. And the thing is that to demonstrate what we can do, we need to use the fact of the current season. And so it's seasonal, our performance in a way, as far as what we're doing in the garden. Obviously,
Yeah.
our mission is much broader, but what we're using as our main, home run right now is to work with what's happening in the garden, and that's happening now. And so I think also I need to understand what is my division's role in this, or do I just wait until we figure things out and just come to monthly meetings and not keep anything, like we need to keep that going, like we need to keep momentum.
Could that be something that you bring up through your division? Like versus, because I mean, I think that you're here in two manners, right? One as a city employee, but one an advocate for what we're actually doing here. So as you're putting on your city hat, can you not get together with your director and then also maybe the legal team and saying, hey, what is this structure and how was it built and what are we doing here? Because the information that we're getting at the board meetings is a little bit, like there's confusion about how we're set up.
Yes, there is the intention to do that soon here, to sit with him and talk with him about that. And I guess I'll see where that goes. I can tell you I've been doing that for 2 years and I don't get any clarity on how that works.
Yeah.
And I think it just has to do with a lot of misunderstanding of what LCUAS is. I think we understand it and the advocates, but when it comes to a department that's juggling various things, there's the intention to do that, and we will. But I think it'd be good to get ultimately legal's kind of stamp on it.
Okay.
So the agreement is that we talk with legal about this.
Correct.
Not legal about everything.
I know.
Yeah.
Legal, can you come to our meetings?
Exactly, can you come to the
Yeah,
Yeah, they
meetings
should have a
and-
position on the board.
I think it's going to go that route, and also based on, I don't know if Guillermo, did you read that? Was that pre-meeting, or did you read it during the meeting about the response from Castillo?
That
I
was,
think it was in the meeting.
yeah, that was pre-meeting.
Right, so if his advice is we need to hire a CPA, we're not city.
Right,
Yeah.
Okay. That's key. I mean, the language.
I think the writing is on the wall.
The writing, okay,
Yeah.
okay,
That we're
to consult with the
separate.
CPA. Okay.
Now again, going back to these other issues, it doesn't mean we can't do MOUs and we can't collaborate with the city, but I mean, it's just going to be an extra step.
Right.
Yeah, it's gonna be necessary
Okay.
because we tried to set ourselves up to do that, and now it's kind of we're learning that it's not really set up to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
okay, so we were thinking about, I mean, we're talking about the lease?
The lease
Yeah,
agreement should
we just need to,
Right,
we already said that about with work,
contact the councilman
Yeah.
about that, or
Right.
my director, and we can
to figure
sit
out
and
what the
talk
deal is.
about
If,
that.
And then potential collaborations with the LISD Farm to School grant. And then Tammy Youth Service Learning, we have a course that is about food politics. And there is interest to have the students doing a Saturday at the Canseco House as part of their service. And then, of course, the whole course is about food politics and how government actually assign funding to different priorities in terms of food and agriculture. So that's one of the things. It's going to be scheduled for the spring. Right now we have it on schedule. So there will be, I think, 50 students.
when does the spring start for you all?
The spring starts on January the 22nd or the 23rd. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I should know this, right?
The just really quickly along the lines with the volunteers and stuff. We do have an intern, unpaid intern, that is kind of helping us out, and I met
Right.
with her yesterday. She is at this point forming kind of a workflow for a volunteer program and how that would look like. From initially reaching out to people, getting people interested, getting them to sign up, and then going from there physically, how will they sign up? How will their information be maintained in a database or in some sort of online program? And scheduling kind of the whole circle, because she's working on that whole thing to get some sort of volunteer program together. That's what
Right.
she's working on
Like
right now.
volunteer management program.
Right, a volunteer management program. Yeah, so she's trying to put that whole thing together.
And we had also discussed along the lines of increasing community involvement. So lately it's been, informal sessions with what we call core members, which are people who have been involved most of these 2 years that the garden has been in existence. People that are just consistently interested. And so it's been a struggle to grow that type of core membership, which is what we're trying to do now with the volunteer. And then also we have every 3-4 months, right, that we work with you to get, we have a big event. We just had one 2 weekends ago, and we get a lot done with those volunteers, but those are more volunteers that come in just for those events. They come in to fulfill community service hours and stuff like that. So one of the things we discussed in starting to bring LCUAS and this volunteer component to the forefront was to start having those more on a monthly basis, but they're not going to be huge events in the terms that we're bringing breakfast, tacos, and coffee and stuff. We're kind of fusing the garden sessions that are every Saturday with more of an invitation to come and fulfill your community service hours, and maybe using the noon chats and some publicity to start just putting that on people's mind and using that as something to piggyback some additional information on people getting more involved on a more consistent level. So that's just kind of the first approach. But we're looking to have at some point some kind of printed material, brochure, something a newsletter eventually, email newsletter.
Just so you know, in December we are in the initial stages of planning an event. It's going to be an outdoor, like what I'm going to do is I'm going to donate whatever. I'm going to make like a kind of a impromptu grill. And we're going to do like an asado out back, grill some vegetables. Mike, that you're obviously are more than welcome to help me out.
When is it? When is this?
It's somewhere in December. I think December 7th is the day. It's a Saturday. So featuring stuff from the garden. So I'll be grilling stuff, doing food. People can come by, and we're in talks with Starbucks to do it with them. Starbucks will be talking about their initiatives with sustainability, what they do for sustainability, and then we'll talk about LCUAS's mission for sustainability, what our goals are for sustainability, and then we'll kind of prepare some food, and have some coffee and tea, and maybe have a little talk about composting and how coffee is important, coffee grounds or whatever, to type Starbucks back in there, but Starbucks is anxious to participate because they are big in community development and with sustainability too. So we should have, within a couple of weeks, we should have that a little more developed as far as what that. But that's kind of what it's going to look like. A little outdoor. Hey, stop by,
It's a fundraiser.
chat. Yeah, have a little bit of food and stuff like that. And,
Not a
taste stuff from the
fundraiser.
garden.
It is a fun.
It is a fundraiser.
Yes, the idea is
Okay.
for it to be a fundraiser. Yes,
Okay.
and so we would charge, whatever that we need to figure out. But
Right.
so that would be a fundraiser.
What I was going to mention earlier is that those pamphlets or some type of printed material is important because we've been trying, at the farmers market, we try to promote the garden as much as possible. The idea for the farmers market is to educate or to give resources to the community where the community can go to these resources and learn more about urban agriculture and sustainability, because that's going to show a return at the farmers market, right? What we want is for more produce to be produced here locally so that we can have more produce at the farmers market. That's the main thing that we struggle with at our farmers market. So, whenever we have some of the garden stuff, we'll put a little sign and people are really interested in like, hey, where's this garden and what do we do? But I don't know if maybe this intern or I don't know, right? Or maybe a representative from the board besides me, because I'm there as a farmer's market in that aspect, but go out there and people are really interested in learning where they can go, what do you guys do, how can they get involved, once this volunteer thing maybe is developed a little bit,
Right.
that's
That's going to be another good
that can be a good
to
outlet,
get.
because as soon as we just put the picture of the garden out there and we have some produce to show them, people are like, where do I sign up? Who do I call? And we give them all the information that we have, but having that presence at the market would be a huge benefit to grow the community a little bit more.
Okay. And so, in that regard, I think that same issue or similar issue of people interested in learning more about gardening and where is my local food garden, right? So the question is, for example, I live in the north. I want to go to Canseco. It takes me 20 minutes to get there. But if there are other gardens around my area, for example, Hillside might be closer, right? How do I make contact with that specific garden so I can start going there? Or I live in Mines Road. How do I get Fasking to?
Right.
That's been another thing
So,
too.
so that part of the volunteer articulation of when are these things available, because it's like a mystery. I mean, we work here at LCUAS, and I feel it's still like a mystery, like we don't know exactly how
And
to
you know,
get involved.
You make a good point because
It's
it's that just right now that that one of the news stations was here and they were asking some details
Right.
about it.
Right.
And it's always something they ask me, oh, how do people get involved? And I always say, well, we know we have Instagram and we have this,
Yeah.
where you can call the Parks Department and that. And some people do that, but we are missing
Yeah.
a very direct
Yeah.
way of
Mhm.
informing
Connecting
people.
Which is what the
Everything.
intern hopefully should be.
Right.
That's what we're working
Unpaid
on.
intern.
Is that she?
I'm gonna keep saying unpaid intern.
Is a she or a he?
Excuse me?
Is a she?
She.
She can come talk to me.
Awesome. Great.
Because there are some volunteer, like online volunteer platforms
Okay.
that she can look at.
Okay,
And
perfect.
we use that for our
Right,
events,
I mean, we
but
have
for her
our
to-
internal platform at TAMIU, but there are others that are, some of them are free, some
Okay.
of them are paid.
Mhm.
We,
This
I
one we
mean,
want free.
we might be, I mean, one is like $30 a year, so maybe that's like, if we can use that money,
That
right?
would be great. Yeah.
We can probably
Okay.
try to articulate that.
can get her in touch with Dr. Reba.
Right, so.
I'm gonna be in
I will
touch with
send
you
her-
too because we
Sure.
need, it's hard to manage all the volunteers that kind of come in and out. Our regular ones, the ones that just, want to fulfill the hours and stuff like
Right,
that. So,
right.
so that would be good.
And just a quick comment on this. So, Dr. Reva spoke to Ms. Skaggs in the food politics course, and obviously, I think she had mentioned it's going to be like officially recognized for their credit.
Yes.
So
This
it's
is
actually
course.
they've made it very formal with TAMIU that this course can have their credits count with whatever they do at the gardens. So it's
Okay.
going to be part of the component.
Okay.
We also have currently, in a more informal way, there's some ecology students that are doing research on like the pollinator garden. They learned like some interesting stuff about these bumblebees that are on one of the weeds called quelite. They didn't know what was attracting them, and they found that they're dusting themselves with the pollen to control mites on their bodies. And so it's kind of cool that these classes are getting involved. But LISD had approached me a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if I gave an update on this or not, but they got a $100,000 farm to school grant from the USDA, and they're looking, I think they have about $9,000 más o menos to use for educating their instructors on how their instructors are going to work with the students in their gardens. So their intention with their grant is to place gardens at like 24 of their schools, and so yeah, they're.
So they
I
can
asked
send them, they
them-
can send them to the garden to work sessions and to learn?
More. I think it's more that there would be like a specific sessions with their teachers at Canseco, and we would instruct them on certain aspects of gardening, and we would get paid
Okay.
for those sessions. But ultimately, they were looking at risk to do that. But as far as I know, risk doesn't do that type of stuff. So I just kind of left it open. I said, look, this is what we can offer. You let me know what role you want us to play.
Well, that's
And,
awesome because that's money that can get
that's our
into our
first
account and
Bit
Yeah.
of money, yeah.
will help with the online system for volunteers.
Yeah.
Right, and then pamphlets and all that.
All right, cool, okay.
Myself, if she wants to.
Okay, I'll have her reach out to you. Cool.
And
That's
then
good.
also, I'm looking at writing a grant for TAMIU, but it has like some kind of articulation with the farmers market. So I need to talk with Priscilla, but also with the CIS because they're looking for developing like more food that is nutrition, maybe homegrown. So it might be a way to articulate efforts between TAMIU, our garden, SUIS, the other gardens that exist, and the farmers market. So we have more fresh produce available.
Yeah, that would be really good.
That would be awesome.
Very good.
But I'm still looking into that grant that is giving me a super big headache. And then I got sick. Okay, so the next discussion is possible action for the formation of subcommittees based on the LCIS presentation categories. So there is that LCIS presentation, and I don't know if you have it on file, but it has what are some of the goals and the mission of the organization. So we might be able to articulate our subcommittees based on those
Oh, yeah, that
specific
was-
goals.
Remember that.
And who has the primary email like list for all of us?
Now, that's
the
a
board?
good question.
I can,
We-
I have
I
one.
can get one developed and
Okay.
send it to y'all.
Yeah, that way we could. That way I could send that presentation out to everybody.
Okay.
I think we
Also,
can-
I know of-
The next meeting.
I'm gonna send you the link for the certificate of. Does anyone else need that, or should I just send it to everybody?
Well, I sent it out,
The what?
I sent it out
Oh,
with the
you
agenda.
did send it out.
See.
Yeah,
Okay.
so did Bobby.
I'm gonna email the purchasing policy for Main Street just so we can review that and see if we need to
Mhm.
implement that here.
And we don't want to take more time because it's 1:15
Okay.
already. So we're gonna.
Go ahead.
Yes,
Can
I'm
we
sorry.
just go over items for next agenda real quick, so?
Yes, good idea.
Yes, that's a very good idea. And also, we need to identify also items to work, we talk with legal specifically. So that some of them are for legal and some of them are for next meeting, right?
Right.
Okay.
So I think for sure on our next meeting, we have to have, I mean, that's why we're in this pickle, but a discussion and approval of bylaws.
Yeah.
And then depending from there, it would be, depending on what the response is, how we elected officers first before our bylaws, we might have to do it again.
Correct.
Right,
Just to
and
formalize
depending on
it.
what Christian says, then maybe we have to have an item correcting
The
Mhm.
and then
Secretary of
adopting
State.
the
Yes.
bylaws. Yeah.
So for Christian, I have interpretation of governing board positions,
Mhm.
and that would kind of take care of everything. The procedure for the minutes, and possibility of city employees working at Conseco.
And the lease
That's you,
agreement.
yes.
Oh, and the lease agreement.
Well, the lease, you said Merck, right?
Oh, Merck.
Yeah, thank you.
You talked to Merck.
That's right. So for the next meeting, whose responsibility is it to do the agendas?
The secretary.
The secretary, that's okay. So we'll follow this. Should we add something in there like old business?
If we need to follow up on,
On stuff that we have like as
Yeah.
homework, correct?
So I know a quick question. I know that there can be quorum like even through email, right?
Not with, because we're applicable to the Open Meetings Act,
Mhm.
and through that, the instances where that is allowed do not apply to us. So we cannot do anything through email or teleconferencing or anything.
Yeah, we can't deliberate.
Okay, well, my question is, can we share like the draft agenda with everyone for review prior? Is that like an okay thing to do, or are you not supposed to? I know this last time we assisted with putting an agenda together. I guess it's supposed to ultimately be sent through you.
That's a good question. I don't know.
I mean, is it okay to do that? Like to draft something and share it with everyone for?
I think actual information isn't a problem. I think it's just if there's this ongoing, what do you think of this? I don't like that.
Right.
I wouldn't vote for that.
But it
And
could
that's the
just be
thing.
like, hey, here's the draft, review it. Do you have any opinion? That's okay, like feedback.
Correct. I
Right.
think that's
That way
okay.
this
I
time
would-
it could have
I would,
helped. You would have said,
um,
hey, you know what, man, let's make sure to.
If anything, I think you maybe have to send that out, not as a group email, but individual.
Okay.
Just 'cause I don't know the rules, but we can't, yeah, I don't know. I don't know who that would be a question for. Because
I
if
think
it's-
sending
if
it
it's-
out to individuals would take care of that, and as long as there's no decision being made.
Well, again, you still
Right.
can't have, because then there's the walking quorum, where somebody goes and talks to one person, then they go and talk to another person, they go and talk to another person. But they're deliberating, and
As
then
long as there's no
yeah,
deliberation.
Yeah, so I don't necessarily think a mass email of, here's the agenda,
Are we missing
is
is,
violating anything.
okay.
Right,
Volunteer
because
self.
it's also public access, or you're supposed to, like, people should know what we're doing, no secretive conversation.
Now, I would say in response to that, if we want an item on the agenda, it's probably not a good idea to send a reply all, but to speak directly with the
the
secretary to say, oh, could you add this item?
Okay.
Oh, okay. That should be said.
So we'll do that.
Okay.
So I think we need to contact legal, set up a meeting with legal.
Right.
Once that meeting is scheduled, then we can discuss when we would have our next meeting. 'Cause I'd love to have a next.
Who do we all meet with legal, or does someone, do particular individuals meet with them? Or just
As long as we don't
whoever's
have
available?
quorum.
I mean, is there anything that we have to deliberate on before the end of this fiscal year?
Just the release of.
I mean,
No, that's not a
does-
deliberation.
does-
That would
It's
just
not
be the voice
deliberation.
straight up.
Deliberate?
No.
I don't think so. You think, man?
Yeah, I can.
Like for a bank account or for the invoice or anything like that, we don't need to.
To tell you the truth, we can reach out to Christian, see when he's available. And if he gives us enough time, like, I'm available on, let's say, Monday, we can set that up as a meeting, can't we? And-
Over there or have them come here?
Yeah, it doesn't matter, but we could have that as an agenda. He's on the agenda, and that'll take care of everything, correct?
Well, what if,
I think, minimum you need 1 week to set up a meeting for, because then the public has to be aware of.
72 hours.
Oh, is
72
it
hours.
72
Yeah.
I thought it was a week. Oh, that's good.
Mhm.
Whatever.
I'm not sure if, I don't know what the conversation would look like, but I don't know if we would need a break in between talking to him and I don't know if there's anything we need to get done before. I don't know if we can go from one and jump into the other, you know what I mean?
Let me see when he's available. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay,
That's it, just have-
was there another point on the?
Well,
Okay,
okay, we're
Yeah,
at-
my first and foremost, we've got to resolve the issue with the bylaws.
we adjourn this meeting
Yes.
at 1:20.
21.
One.